I never thought I'd be the guy to catch his wife cheating. I mean, Heather and I had been together for almost 8 years. We moved into our house, got a dog, and settled into this life I thought was perfect. At least I thought it was. Early on, I started noticing little things. She'd be more distant, distracted even when we were hanging out. She'd check her phone constantly, hide her texts. At first, I just chalked it up to work stress or her being busy, but then I started catching her in little lies. The first real sign was around the time we installed those new security cameras. We'd been robbed twice, actually. After the second break-in, I decided enough was enough. We called in a locksmith, Mike, to upgrade the locks and rekey everything. Mike was a decent guy, friendly, professional, seemed trustworthy. We had him come in during the day so my wife wouldn't be home, which I thought was normal. But looking back now, I realize I should have paid more attention to those moments. It was after he finished installing the new locks that I started noticing strange things. Heather was suddenly more interested in the security system than ever before. She'd ask about the cameras, how they worked, what they recorded. She even insisted on having access to the footage, which was weird. And then she started mentioning that she and Mike had been talking more often, exchanging texts, sometimes late at night. She told me it was just about the security upgrades, that she was just making sure everything was fine. She called him a good guy, and I remember thinking, okay, maybe I was overthinking it. But then I saw the new keys he had made. I never noticed that before. I found them on the table one day when she was at work. They were small, shiny, and had that weird custom engraving, something only Mike would know. I got curious, so I looked into it. It wasn't just a copy of our front door key. It was a new key specifically for our back door, and it looked like it had been recently cut. The thing that hit me the hardest was the fact that I had no idea Heather had a new key, and I never saw Mike leave with it. How the hell did he get it? When were they meeting up? I started watching the security footage more closely. I set the cameras to record everything. At first, I didn't see anything unusual, but then I caught it. Late one night, around 11 p.m., I saw him enter our house with a set of keys in hand. I froze it and zoomed in. The guy was my locksmith, Mike. He was entering with a key I knew I didn't give him during the job. And then I saw him leave a little later, but not alone. Heather was with him. They were in the backyard, whispering, and he kept looking around like he was making sure they weren't seen. I couldn't believe what I was seeing. My wife was cheating on me right under my nose with the guy I trusted to upgrade our security. I felt sick. My heart started pounding. I couldn't breathe right. I replayed that footage over and over, trying to process what it meant. Why? How? When did this start? For a moment, I just sat there, numb, staring at the screen, trying to find any explanation that didn't make me feel like a complete idiot. But there were no excuses. That made sense. She was lying to me. The guy I hired, the guy I thought was a professional, was actually my wife's secret lover. I didn't sleep that night. I kept thinking about all the times she lied, the times she seemed distant, the fake smile she put on when she was around him. It was like my entire world was crumbling. I didn't know how to confront her yet, but I knew I couldn't ignore it anymore. The next morning, I knew I had to confront her. I kept replaying that footage in my head, trying to gather my courage. Heather was still asleep when I woke up, her chest rising and falling in that fake sleeping pose she always used when she was trying to pretend she didn't do anything wrong. I sat on the edge of the bed, my mind racing. I felt sick, angry, betrayed, all at once. The betrayal hit me like a punch to the gut. How long had this been going on? Why Mike? Why me? Why our home, our life? I felt like a fool for not seeing it sooner. I decided to play it calm at first. I didn't want her to see how much she'd broken me. I went to the kitchen, made some coffee, and waited. When she finally woke up, I looked her right in the eyes and said, "We need to talk, Heather." Her face immediately changed. That look of innocent surprise she always put on when she knew she was guilty just didn't sit right anymore. She sat up, trying to act casual, brushing her hair back, giving me that fake "what's wrong" expression. I kept my voice steady but firm. "I know about Mike," I said, watching her face carefully. Her eyes widened for a split second, then she gave me one of those bitchy smirks like she thought she could talk her way out of it. "What are you talking about? You're imagining things," she replied, flipping her hair, her voice dripping with fake innocence. I shook my head. No, Heather, I've seen the footage. You and Mike in our backyard late at night. The keys he made, the way you talked to him, the way he's been coming in and out of here. Don't lie to me." She scoffed, crossing her arms. "Oh, come on, you're overreacting. Mike's just a contractor. He's just doing his job. Maybe I was asking him about the security because I care about our safety. It's not what you think." Her tone was dismissive, like I was stupid for even questioning her. But I wasn't stupid. I knew the truth now. The way she looked at me, defensive, angry, she wasn't going to admit anything easily. I could tell she'd been lying all along, that she had no intention of stopping. That's when I felt the first rush of pure rage. She'd been lying to my face for weeks, maybe months. She'd been sneaking around, meeting him in secret, and I'd been clueless. My trust, which I thought was solid, was shattered. I realized that our entire relationship was built on a lie, and I didn't even know how deep it went. I told her that I saw everything, that I knew about the affair. Her response? She rolled her eyes, called me paranoid, and said I was overreacting, that I was making a big deal out of nothing, that I was jealous, insecure. That hurt worse than anything else, her dismissiveness, her turning it into some kind of personal attack on me. I felt my blood boil. How could she be so callous? How could she lie so easily? I was furious, a mixture of heartbreak and rage. I wanted to scream at her, to shake her, to make her see how much she had betrayed me, but I kept my composure. Inside, I was already planning what I was going to do next. I knew this wasn't going away, and I wasn't going to let her get away with it. I told her I needed some space, that I couldn't stay in the same house with her right now. She just looked at me like I was crazy, like I was the one overreacting, but I didn't care anymore. Nothing mattered except figuring out how to get her out of my life, or, at the very least, making her regret what she'd done. That day, everything changed. I started digging deeper, checking phone records, looking for more evidence. I wanted to understand exactly how long this had been going on, how many times they'd met, what else she was hiding. I felt like I was unraveling a terrible, ugly secret I never wanted to know. I couldn't eat, I couldn't sleep. My mind kept circling back to the fact that I had loved her, trusted her, and she'd thrown it all away for some stupid affair with that locksmith. I thought about the way she lied, the way she dismissed everything like I was the one doing wrong. I realized I was in shock, but also I was furious. Furious at her for betraying me, furious at myself for not seeing it sooner, furious at Mike for being such a piece of shit. At that moment, I knew I had to decide what I was going to do. But the anger still burned inside me, and I knew this was only the beginning. After that confrontation, I couldn't focus on anything else. My whole world was crumbling, and the only thing I kept thinking about was how I was going to get some kind of justice. I started to plan my next move, and honestly, I didn't want to just kick her out and walk away. That felt too easy, too quick. No, I needed something more, something that would really make her feel the pain she'd caused me, maybe even more than I was feeling right now. I did some digging online, trying to figure out how deep this thing went. I remembered the footage, the keys, the late-night meetings. I wanted to catch her in another lie, get proof she couldn't deny. I kept the cameras rolling, but I also started watching her in person. She was acting different now, more defensive, more bitchy, like she was trying to hide her tracks better. She'd snap at me if I asked about anything, and her excuses kept getting more ridiculous. "I was just talking to Mike about fixing the fence," she'd say, or "we just had to meet up because he needed a signature." Yeah, right, I knew better. Then one day I noticed her phone was acting weird. She'd leave it on the counter face down more than usual. I couldn't resist. I grabbed it when she went to the bathroom, and I started scrolling through her texts. I saw messages exchanged with Mike, flirty comments, suggestive pictures, even plans to meet up again. It was so obvious now. My stomach sank. I felt betrayed all over again, like someone had ripped my guts out. I also found out they'd been texting for months, maybe longer. It wasn't a quick fling, it was a full-blown affair. How the hell did I miss all of this? I was so blind, so trusting. I'd been giving her the benefit of the doubt, thinking she was stressed or busy. But the truth was, she was lying to my face every day. She'd been sneaking around, having sex with him, probably in our bed in the house I paid for. That realization made me want to vomit. I felt so stupid for not noticing the signs earlier, for not seeing how she was slowly destroying what we had. I decided I couldn't just confront her with a calm talk anymore. I needed to catch her in the act, get undeniable proof. So I started setting traps. I left my phone in the living room with the screen on, hoping she'd slip up. I installed a hidden app that could record her calls and texts. Every night I'd check the footage, looking for any sign of her meeting him again. And sure enough, after a few days, I caught her slipping into the backyard after dark, Mike's truck parked nearby. I watched her crawl through the gate, lean into his car, and then come back later, her face flushed. Her hair a mess. That was the final nail. I knew I couldn't ignore it anymore. I had enough evidence to make her admit what I already knew deep down. She'd been cheating on me with Mike, the locksmith I hired to keep us safe. The man I trusted to help protect my home had been the very person she was sneaking around with. I felt an overwhelming mixture of rage, heartbreak, and a strange sense of clarity. I realized I'd been a fool for trusting her, for not seeing the signs, for thinking we had a normal life. That night I couldn't sleep. I sat in the dark, staring at my phone, considering what to do next. Part of me wanted to confront her immediately, call her out, tell her I knew everything. But I also knew that wouldn't be enough. I wanted to make her regret everything, to make her feel the pain she'd caused me in a way that would stick. I started planning my revenge, not in the petty way most people might think, but something calculated, something that would hit her where it hurt. I didn't want to just kick her out and let her go. I wanted her to see that I wasn't some fool she could walk all over. I knew I had to act carefully. I needed to get rid of her, but I also needed her to understand that I wasn't going to be some doormat anymore. I'd been humiliated, betrayed, and shattered inside, but I also realized I had the power now. I was going to make her regret the day she ever crossed me. And when I finally confronted her again, I knew I wouldn't hold back. This time I'd come prepared, and she'd have to face the consequences of her actions. I was done playing nice. I was done pretending everything was fine. That's when I started to plan my move, my revenge step by step. The next few days were a blur of planning and simmering anger. I couldn't sleep properly, kept pacing around the house, staring at those damn cameras that had become my silent witnesses. Every time I watched her sneak into the backyard with Mike again, I felt a fresh wave of rage. It was like watching my life slip away, piece by piece. I knew I had to do something, but I also knew I couldn't just storm in and accuse her outright. That would blow everything up before I was ready. I needed a plan, and I had to be smart about it. I started by setting up a few more cameras, hiding them in places she wouldn't notice. I wanted to catch everything, every meeting, every secret exchange. I also installed a recording device in her phone, just to collect more concrete evidence. I knew she was sneaky, but I wanted her to slip up, to trip herself into a confession. Meanwhile, I kept a close eye on her, watching her every move. When she was out, I went through her things, found some of her hidden messages with Mike, and even checked her social media accounts under a fake profile I created. It was disgusting how brazen she'd become, posting little snippets of her secret rendezvous as if she didn't care about the world knowing the truth. One day, she was supposed to meet him again. I'd already set everything in motion. I wanted her to believe I wasn't watching, to feel safe enough to make her biggest mistake. I planted a small recording device in a plant pot outside, pointed right at the backyard. When she left for work, I pressed record and decided I'd wait for the inevitable. Hours passed, and in the footage I saw her tiptoeing out the back door, followed by Mike. They hugged, whispered, and then she slipped into his truck. I watched her drive off, heart pounding, knowing this was it. It was finally happening. That night I waited until I heard her keys jangling at the door. I stayed in the shadows, my pulse racing. When she finally stepped inside, I was waiting in the living room, cold and steady. She looked surprised, then annoyed when she saw me. I didn't say a word at first. I just played the footage on my phone, showing her the recordings of her sneaking out, of her with Mike, of her lying to my face every step of the way. Her eyes widened. She couldn't deny it now. The truth was there, crystal clear. She started to spin her usual lies. It's not what it looks like, or you're overreacting, but I cut her off. No more lies, Heather. I have it all. You've been cheating on me with Mike for months. Do you even realize what you've done? You've used me, lied to me, and I was too stupid to see it. Her face twisted into a mixture of anger and contempt. She spat out, "You're just jealous because I don't want to be with a pathetic loser like you. Mike's nothing to me. It's just sex, that's all. You're overreacting." That comment hit me harder than I expected. Her words, her attitude, like I was nothing. I felt a cold, hard numbness settle over me. I wanted to scream, to break something, but instead I told her to pack her things. I said I was done, that she had been caught red-handed and I wasn't going to pretend everything was okay anymore. She sneered, told me I was crazy, that I was jealous and insecure. She called me clingy and pathetic, trying to dismiss what I had caught her doing. But I wasn't listening anymore. That night she left, stormed out, actually, probably to stay with some friend or maybe to Mike's place. I stayed up and watched the footage again, feeling this strange mix of relief and devastation. I knew I'd finally taken a stand. I felt like I was waking up from a nightmare I'd been living in for too long. My trust was broken, my marriage was over, but at least now I knew the truth. I was finally free from the lies, even if it hurt like hell. What really sank in after all of this was realizing how much I'd let her manipulate me, how much I'd ignored the warning signs because I loved her. I thought I was doing everything right, working hard, providing, trying to be a good husband, but none of that mattered in the end. She thrown it all away for some cheap sex with a guy I hired to keep us safe. The betrayal cut so deep I wondered if I'd ever recover, but deep down I knew I had to move on. I had to rebuild my life piece by piece. The hardest part was accepting that someone I loved so much could do something so cruel. But I also learned that nobody, no matter how much you trust them, is immune to betraying you if they want to. And sometimes, you just have to cut your losses and walk away. After she left that night, I sat alone in the living room, staring at the empty doorway. The house suddenly felt colder, emptier than ever before. All those years of trust, the plans we made, the future I imagined, all shattered in an instant. I was numb, but beneath that numbness was this rising swell of anger and heartbreak. I kept replaying everything in my mind, trying to understand how I missed all the signs, how she could lie so effortlessly, how she could betray me so casually. The first thing I did was start packing some of her things. I didn't want her to think I was waiting for her to come back. I wanted her to see I was serious. When she finally called me the next day, her voice was full of that same bitchy tone she always used, like she hadn't done anything wrong. She said she was sorry, that she didn't mean to hurt me, that it was just sex, just Mike, that she needed something different, as if that somehow justified everything. I told her I'd heard enough, that I'd seen everything on tape, and that I was done. That I didn't want to hear any more lies. She begged, of course. Said she loved me, that she didn't want to lose. Emily, I laughed bitterly. Told her that love was supposed to be about trust, about honesty, that she had destroyed that. I told her I was filing for divorce and she could take her lies and her secret lover and go to hell. I didn't want anything else to do with her. I felt a strange mixture of relief and emptiness. Part of me wanted to shout, to break something, but I knew that wouldn't do any good. I just wanted her gone. Over the next few weeks, I focused on rebuilding my life. I got a new job, moved into a different apartment, and started therapy. I didn't want to carry this betrayal around forever. Every day was a struggle, but I knew I had to keep going. I felt betrayed, humiliated, and angry, but I also knew I couldn't let her ruin me completely. The hardest part was the loneliness, the realization that the woman I loved, the woman I trusted with everything, had been lying and cheating behind my back. It made me question everything. Was I ever truly happy? Did I ever really know her? One thing I learned was that no matter how much you love someone, if they're capable of lying so effortlessly, the relationship isn't worth saving. I kept telling myself that. I deserved better. I had to remind myself that I was still a good man, even if I felt broken inside. I also learned that revenge wasn't about hurting her, not really. It was about reclaiming my dignity, my sense of self. I realized that I needed to forgive myself for trusting her so blindly, and I had to accept that sometimes people really do change, and not for the better. Looking back now, I see that this experience was a brutal lesson. It hurt like hell, and it probably always will to some extent. But I also see that I'm stronger than I thought, strong enough to walk away from a betrayal that would have destroyed most people. I'm still healing, still trying to put the pieces back together, but I know I'll get there. Because at the end of the day, what I learned is this. Trust is fragile, and when it's broken, the only way forward is to pick yourself up, dust off, and keep moving. And next time, I'll be more careful about who I let into my life. Because some betrayals cut so deep, they change everything forever. Now looking back, I realize how much this whole ordeal changed me, probably for good. At first, I was just angry, hurt, betrayed. But slowly, I started to see it as a wake-up call. I'd spent years building this life, trusting blindly, thinking she was the one person I could count on no matter what. Turns out that wasn't true. Not anymore. And honestly, I don't regret discovering the truth, even if it tore me apart at first. The most important thing I've learned through all of this is that people aren't always who they pretend to be. Sometimes, the person closest to you is also the one capable of the deepest betrayal. It's a bitter pill to swallow, but it's better to face it than to keep living in denial. I won't lie, there are still moments when I feel anger flare up, when I think about her lying in bed, sneaking around, betraying everything we ever had. But those feelings are slowly being replaced by a sense of relief. Relief that I no longer have to pretend everything was okay, that I can finally move on. I've come to see that revenge isn't about hurting her anymore. It's about reclaiming myself, about reminding myself I'm worth more than the crumbs she left behind. I didn't need her approval, her lies, or her betrayal to define who I am. That realization has been freeing. Leaving her behind, cutting ties, and starting over has given me a new perspective on life and trust. I won't let anyone else take advantage of me like that again. Most importantly, I've learned to forgive myself. Forgive myself for trusting too easily, for not seeing the signs sooner, for loving her so much that I ignored everything else. Forgiveness doesn't mean forgetting or excusing what she did. It's about releasing myself from the heavy weight of anger and resentment. It's about finding peace, even after the chaos. And that peace comes from knowing I'm better off without her. So now, I focus on rebuilding my life, stranger, wiser, more cautious, but also more self-aware. I know the scars will stay, but I also know they'll fade in time. I'll take what I've learned, cherish the good memories, and leave the rest behind. Because, in the end, I've realized that the only person I truly need to be honest with in this life is myself. And I'll never let anyone betray me like that again. Not because I want revenge anymore, but because I deserve genuine respect, trust, and love. Things I hope to find someday again, but on my own terms.